ahead.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sage. And we love being here and we love, well, first of all, everybody, welcome to the University of Richmond. It's a very exciting time, but we also recognize that it might be a little bit of a nerve-wracking time. You've got a child that has or needs accommodations. It can feel intimidating. So part of the point of this discussion today with myself and Julia Kelly, the accessibility specialist, is to assuage some of those fears, concerns that you might have. So we have one simple rule that we follow in our office, which is if you're not in our office enough to bother us, you're not in our office enough. That's what we tell all of our students. And so that's the first thing I want to say is that we're always accessible and we are always available to meet with students during the summer and before they get here. We can meet via Zoom or in person, whatever works. We do like when people stop by, but we're more than happy to meet via Zoom. So that's the sort of the first thing I want to say is we're available all summer. We're around all summer to meet with us, and we will meet after schools or camps or whatever your child might be involved in for the summer. We're willing to work around that schedule if we have enough time. We can schedule a meeting. We can certainly make those things happen. We definitely want to get students in. We want to get them get their accommodations in place. Do want to talk a little bit about what we serve. So we serve students that have disabilities, and those are disabilities that qualify them under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, or the Fair Housing Act. Those laws basically say that you have to have a disability that substantially limits major life activities. So if they've had an IEP or a 504, we can take that documentation. People say, do the accommodations transfer? It doesn't quite work like that. So in order to get accommodations, you have to register for our office, which is a two-step process. The first process is that you go to our website, disability.richmond.edu. So you go to disability.richmond.edu and you would complete the application. And there's a part where you would fill out the information about how the disability impacts you. And that's what we're really interested in, not just what your disability is, but how does it affect you on a day-to-day basis? How has it interfered, if it has, with your educational experiences, so we can figure out how to help you. Then once you complete that application, depending on the kinds of accommodations that you're requesting, you'll either meet with myself or Julia Kelly, the accessibility specialist. So to fill out the application is about a 15-minute process, and you use your NetID and University of Richmond password to do that. And you can upload documentation into our application. It is completely paperless. So you can upload, and it's behind the University of Richmond's firewall, so it's really secure. Once you do that, fill out that application, you'll get a request to set up an appointment with either Julia or myself, and you will do that. And then we will meet with you. And that is a necessary part. You do have to meet with us, because in that meeting, we're going to meet with you for about a half hour, 45 minutes, sometimes longer. It really depends on the types of accommodations you're requesting, the complexity of what you might be requesting. And we're going to have a conversation with you about how your disabilities impacted you in the past, what might be appropriate in the college setting. And so if you've had accommodations in high school, you can get them in college, and we will take your IEP or your 504 and we will examine that documentation, listen to your narrative, and then provide you with accommodations that are reasonable, necessary, and appropriate in that college setting. And so that meeting with us is really important, and it's your chance to tell us your story. And we don't just want to learn about your disability or the student's disability. We want to learn about the whole student and really try to understand how the disability impacts the whole student and what accommodations might be reasonable, necessary, and appropriate. And also understand that this is the beginning of an ongoing relationship that we're going to have with you for 4 years. And so this is part of an ongoing interactive process. So when we establish accommodations, it's not like it's set in stone. Again, if things evolve or the disability changes, we can always explore more accommodations. The most common accommodations that we see, a lot of testing, a lot of note-taking accommodations, and we have a testing center We also have a test proctor. His name is Hans Selecta, and Julia can tell me if I'm saying his last name right. I always get it wrong. I feel like I don't quite pronounce it right, but Hans is our new full-time proctor position. And so it is, so we have a 3-person staff and we do testing, and we do a lot of testing. And so that's a common accommodation that we have. We also provide things like note taking inside the classroom, but also things outside the classroom. So if you have a chronic health condition or a dietary need, we work very closely with dining services to make sure that you don't just have to eat the spider chicken, right? That if you've got a dietary need, that they can specially prepare meals, but you first got to go through our office. We work with parking services if you have a physical parking need. So we work with all aspects of the university. We say we have the best jobs on campus. And the reason I think we have the best jobs on campus is we get to touch every aspect of the spider experience inside and outside the classroom, because our job is to provide you with the access that you need. So that's an important part. And that's why that conversation is so important, because every person is different. And we have to take every person and their impact on their disability one by one, and we have to look at what's appropriate for that individual. For that first meeting, we are more than happy to have parents, as part of that first meeting, because you will know things about your child, if parents are listening to this, that they either might not want to share or might not fully understand. Now, what is different about the higher ed setting is that eventually the student's going to take the wheel and they're going to work with our office. We call it self-advocacy on training wheels. They become their self-advocate. We become the training wheel. But for that first meeting, parents are more than welcome to be a part of that conversation if the student wants them there. Because again, sometimes you have, or the parent has knowledge that the child doesn't or doesn't want to share. But again, once that first meeting happens, we really want the student to really take a lot of ownership, because if it's their accommodations, they're an expert on their disability as it relates to them. And we want to develop that positive relationship with them, knowing that we're going to be working with them for 4 years in all aspects of their student life experience. That's the other thing I want to say. Our office, we can't promise that everything's going to go perfectly. We have amazing faculty and amazing staff who work really hard and care a lot about the student experience. It's why you picked the University of Richmond. It's what we're known for. But our promise to you is, if something doesn't go perfectly, we will be there to walk through fire to help you. We will be there to be your advocates. I call us the campus GPS. We are going to help you get on track. If when you're taking your GPS, you're driving somewhere and it tells you you can start going the wrong way and it says recalculating. So if something's not going right, we're the recalculating office. So if you're thinking to yourself, should I let them know? Should I bother them? The answer is always yes to that question. Just know that we're always available to help you navigate whatever. So if it's a difficult conversation with a professor, if it's a process of how you notify your professor, because in college you have to notify the professors, and we'll go through that process. It's called a disability accommodation notice in that first meeting with you. But we're also going to be there to help you do it, to help you write those tough emails to professors sometimes, to help you if you are taking a test and it's not going well and you need a little bit of time to chill. We're there to help in whatever way you need. And a little bit about me, and then I'll give it over to Julia because I've talked enough. But I think Julia would say this. Both of us don't consider this a job. This is our vocation. I think we're both called to do this work. I have, a physical disability, and I know that Julia cares very, very deeply about all of our students. We care a lot. And so this is something that's very personal work for us. So you're never bothering us. We're going to be here working to give you the best experience that we possibly can. That's our promise to you, is that we're going to care a lot about you. We're going to work with you really well. One more thing I want to talk about before I give it over to Julia. There's a cool thing that we do as well that we started last year. We work with a program called the Workforce Recruitment Program, which is a summer internship and job program for people with disabilities through the federal government. And we have interviews that will happen in the fall. So if you're interested in possibly internships with the federal government, either your sophomore or junior year, or job opportunities after you leave, that's a program that you can take part in. So there's a lot of ways to interact with our office. And my other promise to you, and I know Julia agrees with this, you can be as disabled as you want to be or not as disabled as you want to be in our office. Our office is a completely safe space where you can be the best version of yourself or the worst version of yourself in a moment that you need to be, and we're here to help in that. And I'll give it over to Julia and let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schneider. I really have nothing to add. I absolutely echo everything that Dr. Schneider said. We're just so excited to meet all of y'all. And, we have just tons of availability and resources with which to assist you, to which you, are legally entitled. But also we want to go above just the legal compliance piece of all of this. We really want to be a special part of your journey in a way that is individualized to you and meets your needs. So we're just so excited and thank you. Kick it back to Dr. Schneider.
One of the things I will say is that if you're looking at a housing accommodation, we would like you to get that in as soon as possible. We have a housing accommodations committee, and so you'll definitely want to get those in by July 1. So if you're looking at needing some sort of housing accommodation, whether that be an ESA, emotional support animals, if you're looking at possibly a single room, possibly different bathroom needs, whatever those might be within the residence halls, the timelines for that matter right now more than, say, the academic accommodations, which won't start until August. So if you're looking for the housing stuff, you'll definitely want to get those applications in sooner rather than later so that we have time as the Housing Accommodations Committee to meet. And we're not going to process those until July, but so you need to get those requests in by July. We can't necessarily guarantee housing accommodations, but the timeline there is really important, and especially if you miss that July, and because the deadline, because accommodations are based on space. The way I like to phrase it is, I have a pass that allows me to park in accessible parking, but if I go to Walmart and all the spots are taken, there's nothing I can do about that. Housing can work in the same way because we have a limited number of available spots, and so deadlines there really do matter. That's one thing I do want to emphasize for anybody who listens to this that's wondering, how do I get in a housing accommodation? The directions for that are on our website. You do have to fill out an application just like you would any other accommodation, but you definitely want to get that in before the month of July. So you want to be doing that in the next couple of weeks, having a chance to put your stuff in, and you will meet directly with myself. And then that will go before the Housing Accommodations Committee, which includes representations from my office, student health, counseling and psychological services, and of course, residents' life and housing, because it directly affects them.
It's like we're just monitoring the questions. I don't see any yet, but if anyone does have any, again, feel free to ask while you have us here. We're more than willing to help in whatever way we can.
One other thing I didn't mention, you don't have to get retested. If you have documentation, so if you have either stuff from your primary care physician or a psychoeducational eval or a 504 plan or an IEP, we will take all of that as documentation. Again, it doesn't be we do is we look at that documentation in concert with your narrative and determine what accommodations are appropriate. But I don't want anybody listening to this thinking, do I gotta spend $400 to $500 to get retested something that was 4 to 5 years ago? What we're looking for there is we need something that shows current impact of the disability. So depending on what you're asking for, if we can see that current impact and what you're asking for makes sense, we may not require any more documentation. However, if what you're asking for doesn't make sense or doesn't sort of line up with how we understand the disability to operate, then we might. So for example, if you are a person who has Crohn's disease and say, but I need a calculator for all my math tests, well, we might say, well, that doesn't necessarily align with having Crohn's disease. We would need documentation that would show math learning disability for which that's the case.
I don't know if we have any any questions yet. What I will say is obviously, these are great people to contact if you do leave this space and have questions following. The other thing I will let people know too is if you email newspiders@richmond.edu, we are always able to answer questions or get you connected to the right people in the case that we cannot answer the question, which I like to say we know it all, but we don't. But we can always get in contact with the right people. Um, so unless anyone has anything further to bring up, I will close it out. Thank you to all of you for attending this evening, and to Dr. Cort Schneider and Julia also for being here to help provide information and answer questions. So again, thank you to everyone, and I hope people have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you.